Hello everyone, today is 21st February, Topology Aware Scheduling Engineering Sync. We have a couple of items in the agenda. Let's kick off the discussion, I think. First item is from Francesco. Take it away.
Yes, so I wanted to mention about making it easy for people wanting to try the stack, which we are building, which we built, we are building, we are managing, we are evolving. So there are a couple of items. First of all, in the past, let's say, couple months, we, as in Red Hat, we contributed this tool we called, which we picked a not so great name called the deployer, which is basically a set of packages and a command line tool which helps installing all the bits and pieces needed to enable NUMA-aware or topology-aware scheduling in any Kubernetes cluster. And while we are in Red Hat, we are building on that foundations and we support it even with some limited bandwidth. I'm just wondering and asking this forum if we want to start mention, we want to recommend it as preferred vehicle to deploy topology scheduling, not a decision we should make now, so something we should think about and decide in the future, or if our preferred way would be Helm chart or whatever. And what I'm mentioning is the future of our recommendation, not the current one, which are covered by the existing documentation. So we contributed this tool, but the overarching need is we most likely don't want people to try a random combination of API, scheduler plugin, NFD, or RT, or whatever. We want to recommend, let's say like a version of the stack. So you want to use an RT API, not this Topology API, this version alongside this particular scheduler version, and this version of NFD or RT or whatever. And again, this is something the deployer tool kind of solves already, but I'm not trying to push it. What I'm trying to say is that I think we do have this problem. We should recommend group versions one way or the other. So those are kind of the two first points I would like to raise to this forum. Any thoughts? Again, I'm not looking for a decision now. I'm just introducing the topic.
Yeah, I think the thoughts that I have on this is like +1 to the stack versions, just capturing that these versions of different components work together and are essentially deployed by deployer, for example. The other one I would have in mind would be that in addition to RTE, we should have the ability to deploy it with NFD. If I understand correctly, currently in deployer, we just have RTE. So that would be another item I have in mind. And overall, I think topology-aware scheduling components are kind of distributed across different projects. So having a single tool to deploy all these components is definitely useful. Again, I think from my point of view, I feel we have it in the working group repo or the GitHub org already, and there's been work done on it. So I think just capturing what the current state of the deployer is and what the current state of these different projects in terms of NFD, RT, and what are the capabilities that each of these offer, and what our long-term plan is. I think all these things would capture kind of our plan as the working group, as well as kind of align with the deployment process of these components.
Taking notes for the one from the discussion in the document. Keep just to capture the measure points. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Last topic I want to raise to this forum is that while NFD catches up, which it could take still some time, because we need to submit still a good chunk of PRs to align to our developments we pushed forward in RT, things we tried and we are happy about in RT. So we need to do some changes in NFD. While NFD catches up, and it could take, well, at least one minor release, it's 0.10, if I'm not mistaken. Well, another minor release. Do we want to mention or recommend RT now? It's an open question. There are pros and cons on every decision, so it's an open question.
Yeah, again, I think in line with my previous comment, just capturing what the capabilities of the two components are in the current state, I think would be useful here. Like I think we just recommending that NFD is a component that allows us to deploy these components, but at the same time, RT is something that might work for people as well, just the ones who care about topology-aware scheduling, and they don't care about the other things that NFD deploys. So yeah, I think documentation and again, the long-term plan of everything would eventually be in NFD, I think captures the essence of it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, works for me. So
yeah,
that's
and
it.
if anyone has any other comments like that's more than welcome.
I'm good. I think I can start in the coming days / next week, start to send some PRs to the documentation repo we have and start implementing the things we discussed. So I'm okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Francesco. The second one we have is essentially congratulations to all the members of Red Hat team. There was a major announcement for OpenShift 4.10 release that topology-aware scheduling is part of as a tech preview feature. So that's good to see that all the work that we've been doing in the community is getting adopted in a product. So
I will send this to relay back to the team, and yeah, we are investing, and it would be nice maybe to start documenting adopters. I'm just not aware of any measure adopted. So if anyone wants to send a PR to the docs to say, hey, we are using this or we are testing this stuff and we are serious about it, I think that could be a great addition to our documentation.
totally, yeah. Okay, I see Sasha is here. Hi, Sasha. How are you doing?
Hello, colleagues.
Hi. Is there anything that you want to bring up in the forum? Just want to give you the opportunity.
Well, first of all, I was happy to get the opportunity to actually to join and to listen what you guys are discussing. I had practically only one question. In the light of the current discussion, what is going in various documents and forums about like NUMA topology and so on. So in the light of what it will be plugin mechanism, how about the work what you guys are doing in terms of how easy it would be to plug different algorithms to be executed on the scheduler side?
Interesting. So I think we haven't finalized in terms of how it would look like, the design essentially, but my point of view on that is that as the first pass, as the plugins start maturing or the plugin frameworks, big framework becomes adopted in the community, we should have a way to support the current framework as well. And eventually, once we decide that the plugin mechanism is mature enough and we start moving the resource managers outside of Kubernetes, we'd have to identify how the topology-aware scheduling would look like in that case. I think in the current mechanism, pod resource API is kind of the key component. So we'd be interested in learning how these resource managers kind of expose this information to kubelet itself, or does it, or we decide not to do that at all. So all those things I think are kind of open questions at this point in time. So that I think that's where we are at.
Let me ask differently. So let's assume what pod resource API doesn't know anything about it. Let's assume what it will be something else which will be updating the CRs which describe for information about the node. So like put aside everything what is kubelet related. On the scheduler side, how we will be able to put plugins or plug
Alexander,
our own algorithms.
Alexander, do you ask about scoring algorithm or some optimization algorithm based, for example, on graph algorithm? For example, like Swarm is doing it, or any other batching.
Whatever. What I mean is what right now, my understanding on scheduler side, you are running the copy of the topology manager and CPU manager algorithms to predict the pod state, right? So imagine those algorithms are not the one what people are going to use. And imagine what you don't need to care about like kubelet part, so something else will be updating VCRs. How easy for vendor would be to plug on the scheduler side of an algorithm?
Okay, if I truly understood your question, if you need a quite different behavior, or if you need quite different behavior on the scheduler side, you need another scheduler plugin which works with custom resource definition instance.
Well, that might be one like option. So like the common part which takes with CRs and parses the information to internal state, that can be common, but the actual algorithm, like that can be
if you need, if you need to sort it a little bit in another way, you need additional scoring plugin. Now we have a score plugin. It implements a couple of strategies. But if you need another one, maybe you can extend this core plugin, or you may introduce your own.
So the question is, how is your code base actually ready to this kind of either forks or enhancements? Or
currently we have a common part, and we are reusing it in both in filter plugin and in another score plugin. So some kind of thing are already been done.
okay. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and Sasha, if you kind of have more specific details in terms of like what you'd like to do, or it's just in the realm of, you know, how this would proceed in the long term. But other than that as well, like if there's something more specific you'd like to do in the scheduler plugin and introduce capabilities, just feel free to come here, talk to us, and we can help out. We're happy to help.
I'm currently just trying to evaluate so how much it will be require effort to converge like what we already did with work, what you as a group are doing. So like very simple example, we have our project CRIRM where we have several policies. So if you want to put those policies into your scheduler plugin, it's one story. Second part, let's imagine what either kubelet resource management plugin go forward or with NRI things goes forward. I assume what it will be some plugins which will be exporting resource information to those CRs. Again, so a counterpart for the node. So what will we going to do on the scheduler side? So how we integrate the vendor algorithms in the scheduling. That's background.
Okay, I think maybe we could work in a direction to refactor the code in a way that things that need to update the CRs and use the CRs and things like that are very generic. And then it's essentially you're calling those functions to access and update the API. I think we have the CRD API itself is designed to some extent to take care of some of those. But if we need another wrapper around that, and in order to make it easier for someone to consume the API or access the API, I think we can work in that direction as well. But I think overall, once once we have more kind of clear context on what exactly needs to be done, we can kind of work in that direction. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, well, for now, yes, I think I got my answer. Let's see how the discussion about the plugins will go. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Just one thing that, okay, please keep me honest there, but from the scheduler extensibility point of view, as far as I know, the way the scheduler folks, the SIG scheduling recommends to, extend the scheduler is using different plugins. So everything, considering the big picture, I expect them to recommend, hey, if you need a different policy, you implement a different scheduler, a new scheduler plugin. What I'm trying to say that you raised a great point about different policies, different vehicles, but the way I get the feeling from the scheduling community is that instead of having one plugin which in turn pools policies, it's better to have different plugins implementing their own policies. So this is the direction I understand is recommended. I may be wrong, but this would be something to take into account when thinking about the future. And please, Swati and Alexei, which are more experienced about scheduling, please keep me honest there.
I think, yeah, that's a fair statement. But I think I was thinking from the point of view that how topology-aware scheduling itself would have to evolve in the case these plugins are introduced. And in that case, we'd have to make some changes to our existing plugin. But I think I do agree with you. Like if it's a completely, or maybe even a related case where we want to support additional policies, maybe a separate scheduler plugin is the way to go. And then we identify ways that these plugins can be used together and can work with each other appropriately, essentially.
My thinking, what I still can't wrap my head around is like imagine we have cluster. Imagine we have nodes in that cluster which have different policies. So right now, when everything is bolted inside kubelet, it's quite easy. So you still can export the options what topology manager and our set of managers are using. So you can still have one single scheduler plugin which handles all these combinations of options. But in the future, if we have nodes with different resource management plugins installed, like let's imagine simple mixture of VMs plus bare metal. So what happens when? Should we have like as many as types of plugin scheduler extensions, or we should have one scheduler extension which actually handles with combinations and plugins, or what? What is the design?
Again, my understanding on this is that if you have different kinds of nodes that are configured in a different way, you'd be targeting those with the help of a scheduler, essentially. So you'd have a specific scheduler for a set of nodes with a certain set of configuration. At least that's what we've been speaking about so far. Francesco, Alexei, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I think that since most of us is going to attending the batch working group, which is across, it wants to be across SIG working group. I think that's one of the very first questions we should probably ask on behalf of this forum. By the way, my understanding is pretty much what Swati said, but I think batch working group would be a great place to have this conversation started and see what SIGs believe is best.
But again, I don't know scheduler part well enough. So forgive me if I ask very stupid question, but my understanding what scheduling extension is run for every single pod which needs to be scheduled, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if I have multiple nodes with multiple properties, how I can make sure what, like, if I will be forced to have multiple scheduler extensions, what those scheduler extensions will not overlap with each other or not conflict with each other.
So every pod, like in case you want to use a specific scheduler plugin, you specify the scheduler you want to use for scheduling that pod. So there's a scheduler name field in which you specify which plugin you want to use. So essentially that determines which scheduler plugin and which algorithm essentially runs to schedule that pod.
Maybe, okay, maybe I'm being a bit pedantic, but if I'm not mistaken, the scheduler name actually embodies a scheduler profile, which is a set of plugins with different parameters, which is pretty much what you said, but a bit more generic. And I think could help the, I mean, it's a slightly superset of what you said that could, this actually ties back what I was talking about minutes ago, because again, as far as I understand, the scheduling community say, okay, you want flexibility, you create those plugins either inside Kubernetes, you make them merged, or you run a secondary scheduler. You create your profiles, which you need to do ahead of time. You create this set of profiles, configuring the schedulers. Okay, load this plugin with these parameters, this, and that, and then you say, okay, for this group of node, I want to run this profile, which is composed by those plugins enabled with those parameters. And if you make sure, which is the standard as I understand, you don't make overlapping groups, you know, okay, this group is going to run this scheduler, this set of plugins. The thing that I believe could be interesting is that this configuration is static. So, you know, you have to mix and match the set of plugins on the node side with the set of plugins on the scheduling side to make sure they are consistent. In this scenario, I understand we were thinking about. I hope I'm helping.
Yeah, but when, okay, let me clarify one thing. So for workload to benefit from this topology-aware scheduling, it needs explicitly in the pod spec say what it wants to use with scheduling profile.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so all right, so well, it's worse than I was actually expecting.
The
so
thing is,
it's something. It's not something what can be used like default as a for the whole cluster.
No,
not default, but
basically on okay. Again, please correct. My understanding is the following. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. You have a scheduler profile, okay, and there is a default one, okay, and which is the kube scheduler one, and you have that. You can enable the one combination of NUMA-aware scheduling in that profile, but if you want different profiles, more than one, you basically have no option in current Kubernetes infrastructure. Then explicitly say, okay, this pod wants to run with the default, this other pod or deployment or whatever wants to run with this other profile, and to explicitly select the profile, you need to set the scheduler name. That's the scenario.
Yeah, you can use admission hook to set a scheduler name automatically.
Well, admission hook, yes, it's possible, but it's not really anything. All right, well, probably I will come back to that question 2 weeks after. I need to think.
Yeah.
More than welcome to join us again.
Yeah, and probably we need to think about it as well in terms of the questions that Sasha asked. So that'll all give us some time. Okay, so I think we don't have anything else unless there's any other opens or items that people want to chat about. We can call it a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.